Not so long ago, I created two projects with nested comments inside React and inside Angular. And a lot of people wrote me that they are interested in the backend part of this application, and they want to know what is the correct schema to implement such API. As you can see, here is our frontend part. We can create here new comments, we can edit them if we are an author, so I can change the comment. After this, we can reply on this comment, and we can remove a comment if we are an author of this comment and 5 minutes didn't pass. This is why in this video we will create a fully functional API by using Express and Mongodb for nested comments of any application. As you can see here, I have a folder with two files, package.json, it is completely empty, and server, it is also empty. So first of all, we want to write inside script our new command to start our API. And here we can write start command, and it will be node space, and here for example source/index.js, which actually means here we want now to create a source folder, and inside we will have our server index.js. Secondly, I want to install additional package here, and it is called Nodejs. What it does, it will reload after every single file change our web server. This is why here inside console I will write yarn add nodemon and -d, so we will install it as a dev dependency because we don't need to use it in production. Now inside our package.json, instead of node we can write nodemon and it will automatically reload our web server. Our next step is to install a web server. This is why here I want to jump inside console and write yarn add express, and this is our main package. Now we can go directly inside source index.js and import here express server. This is why here we can import express, and here we must require it from express package. And after this we can create our application by just calling express. It is not all, we also need to start our web server by using app.listen, and inside we must provide first of all a port, for example 3012, and then a callback. And inside this callback we can simply write console log, our API is started. Now we can jump inside console and try to start our application, so we simply write yarn start, and as you can see we are getting here messaging from Nodemon, which actually means Nodemon is watching all our files for extensions.js, and Nodemon is starting node source index.js. And here is API is started, which means we successfully created our web server. Now let's check if it's working. This is why here I want to register a new route, app-get, for example /, just to check if it is working at all. So here we are getting two arguments, request and response. We don't need request here, so I will skip it, and we just need here response, and here we can write res send and throw inside just a message hello API. And when I'm saving this file, as you can see here, Nodemon automatically restarted our changes. Now I can open a Postman tool and write here http localhost 3012, and this is a GET request. I'm hitting here send, and as you can see we are getting our message hello API. If you don't know what is Postman, this is the most popular tool to test API requests. And if you don't know where to download it, this is the official website postman.com, and here you can install just a free version of Postman. Our next step here is to configure MongoDB database. And I don't want to spend here time on installing MongoDB on your machine. For the purpose of this video, MongoDB, you can just jump to the official website, download MongoDB there and start it on your machine. So it must be running together with our web server. In this case, we can access MongoDB and save data there. And to work with MongoDB, we must install MongoDB package. This is why yarn add MongoDB. So now we must bind MongoDB to our project, but I want to do it in the correct way. And actually the main idea is that we want to use MongoDB instance from any place of our application. This is why we can't simply write it here. I want to create for this inside source folder new file and call it db.js. And here what we want to do, we want to write exports.get, and this is a function which will return state.db. So what is state.db? Here on the top we can create a state, this is just an object, with db inside, and this is null. And actually the idea is that this state is something inside memory when we start our application, and when we will connect to MongoDB, inside this property DB, we will write our instance. This is why in every single place of our application, we can use this exports get, so we require this file, and we will get the reference to this instance. And it is extremely important if you want to work comfortably with MongoDB. Now here on the top, we can destructure Mongo client, and here we require our MongoDB package that we just installed. And actually Mongo client is what we are using to connect to MongoDB. This is why here we can create new method exports.connect, and here is an asynchronous method to connect to MongoDB. And here we first of all are getting URL where we want to connect and the database name. And here inside I want to write try catch, because if for some reason your database connection is not working, then we want to get it. This is why here will be catch error, and here we can simply write console error. Now first of all inside our try we want to check if we already have state.db. So here if we have state.db, we simply return, we don't need to do anything, because we want just to create one single connection for our whole project. If we trigger connect several times, we don't want to have several connections. After this we can create a client, and what is a client? This is an instance of our Mongo client from the top, where inside we are providing URL from this parameter. After this we have a client and we can connect, and for this we are waiting for client.connect. And now here we want to write the instance inside our state.db. This is why here state.db equals client.db, and here we are providing db name. And this will be the reference to our database, so we can directly make requests to our database. Now let's make a connection to MongoDB. This is why inside index.js, here on the top, we can get our connect function that we just created, and we simply need here to require our DB file. So we have here a connect, and most importantly, we want to connect to MongoDB before we started our web server. Our web server needs to work with database. It doesn't make any sense to create a web server if we didn't manage to start a database. This is why here on the bottom I want to use this connect function, and actually I want to wrap it in additional function start server, so we know what we are doing. This is why here let's define start server, and this is an asynchronous function. Why asynchronous? Because actually connection is an asynchronous operation. So what we want to do here, we want to write await connect, and inside we are providing the URL of MongoDB. And it will be mongodb : localhost 27017 / and any database name. And in our case we can name it comments. So after this line, we are sure that we successfully started and connected to MongoDB. This is why here we can start with listening our web server. This is why I will move our code with app listen inside start server. Now at the end of our file, we can simply start our server by calling a function. Let's check if it's working. I am jumping to our web server, and here we're getting API is started. What does it mean? It means that we're successfully connected to MongoDB, because if we didn't connect, then we won't get here and we won't start app listen. Let's check this out. I am jumping here inside Postman, I'm hitting send, and our API is still working. Now our application is fully ready to start implementing our comments feature. And actually the first request that I want to do is to get all our comments. And for this here I want to write app-get, and here we will have /comments route. But I don't want to write a callback just here, I want to structure my code. This is why I want to create here MVC model. At least we will have model and controller. This is why here I want to write that we have a comments controller.all. And actually it means that we will define additionally as a controller just an object with functions. For example, all or create or update comment or delete comment. This is why here we won't write all this logic directly here inside server, we will split it in different controllers. And here I want to create a new folder and name it controllers, and inside we can create our new controller, which is called comments.js. Now inside here we want to define a new method which is called all. So here we can write exports.all, and here we have a function, and actually it will be an asynchronous function because inside we will make a database request. And here we will get our request, response and next. exactly like we would get here if we will provide here a callback inside our app-get. We simply moved this logic here in additional file. And now here on the top we can write that we want to get our comments controller. This is by const comments controller that we just created, and here we want to require our new controller, so controllers/comments. And actually you might think, okay, we will write here all code regarding database, but no, we won't, because this is controller, this is just a place to build an API response. And what we want to do, we want to create here a new folder models, and inside we will create our comments model. So what is comments model? This is just an entity which will work with the database, which means we have a model, this is something which are working with database, and we have controller, this is a place where we define an API response. So what we want to do here, we want to create a new method, exports.all, and it must return all records of our comments from the database. This is why here on the top we want to get our DB, and just to remind you, this is an instance of our MongoDB. And for this we can simply write here require, and we want to access our DB file. This is it. Now here we can directly work with our database. This is why here I want to return db-get, and here we are working with collection. This is why here we're writing collection, and here is the name of our collection. And actually we want to store all our comments in the collection comments. And after this we can use .find, which will return for us a list of all comments, and after this we can use toArray to convert this list to the array. So actually this is a single liner of MongoDB to get all our comments from the database. And actually the main idea is that our model simply defines how we will work with the database. Now we can use this method inside our controller. So I will jump back inside our controller, and here on the top I want to require our comments model. And here we can simply write require and use our models/comments. As you can see, our all is an asynchronous function. This is why we want to write here try catch, because we want to handle our errors correctly. And here we are writing catch and we can get an error. And if we are getting an error, we can simply call here next an error. In this case, we will give this error directly to Express, and Express will show it correctly. Now here inside try, we can use a method from our model to get all our comments. This is why here let's write that we are getting back docs. Why docs? Because these are the documents from the MongoDB, and here we are using await comments.all. And actually, as you can see here, we are not writing directly methods of MongoDB, we simply use here our model and we are getting back documents. Now let's check if it's working. I want to write here res.send, and we are passing inside our documents. As you can see, we don't have any errors. Let's check this out, and now we can open Postman and check this request, and it was /comments and get request. I'm hitting here send, and we're getting back an empty array, which actually means it is working completely correct, and we successfully implemented our first method of working with API. So how it is working? Once again, first of all, we are inside our server, index.js, and here we registered a new route. Now here we define that this route will trigger the controller all method, and this is our controller all. And here we are not working directly with MongoDB, instead we are using our model. And inside model we are defining methods to work with MongoDB. We successfully implemented getting a list of our comments. Now we need to implement creating of our comments. But for this we must install additional package because we want to work with the body. And this package is called body parser, so we can parse our JSON correctly. This is why let's jump inside console and write here yarn add body-parser. Now here inside our index.js on the top, I want to require body parser, and here is require body parser package. Now after creating our app, we can write app.use, and here inside we are providing body parser.json, so we will parse correctly our JSON when we have content type application JSON. And it is not all, we also want to write here body parser .url encoded, and we want to provide inside extended true. In this case we will parse correctly URL encoded URLs also. Now I want to return to our model, and actually here we want to create a new method to create a comment inside the database. This is why here exports, for example create, and here is an asynchronous method where as an argument we will get our comment that we want to create. And at least for the comment we must provide inside text or maybe a parent ID also, if this comment was a reply. Which actually means in the database, inside comments, we will have first of all ID of the comment, then body of the comment, and then user ID, this is the user who created the comment, and then parent ID. It can be null by default if our comment was a root comment, or it will have the ID of the comment which is the parent of the specific comment that we are creating. So let's write here that we are getting back our result, and we want here to await for our db.collection, just like we wrote on the top, and inside we are providing our comments, and after this we want to use insert1. And what I want to provide inside, I want to spread our comment that we got, and also I want to add a field created add, which will be new date. Why are we doing like this? Because actually we are getting the comment from the client, but on the backend we want to know when this record was created. And after this, I want to simply return here our result that we got. Now let's jump to our controller. And what I want to do here, I want to copy-paste this exports all, just because it will be super similar. Here we're creating a new method which is called create, we're getting here request, response and next, and here we have a try. I will remove everything inside try, and we want to create our comment here. So here, first of all, we want to prepare our comment. So let's create a property comment, and inside we want to paste data from our body. So here we have our body field, and it was request.body.text. Then we have our parent ID, and actually here is request.body.parent ID or null if we didn't provide it, and the last one is user ID, and here I will simply write 1. Actually, in the real application, you will have some users in database, you will have some authentication process, for example with GVT. And at this moment here, you will probably have access to the current user who is logged in your application. I don't have any authentication here at all, this is why I will simply provide here user ID. But typically you will get it additionally from the database, validate and then write this user ID inside your record. So our comment is prepared. Now we can get back a document by calling await comments.create, and inside we are providing our comment. So we have our document. Now let's write res send, and here we are sending our document. The last step that we must do is jump to our index.js and create here a new route, and it will be a post on /comments, and here is our controller.create. Let's check if it's working. Here we have /comments, post request. I hit here body, and inside we are providing an object with text, and we can throw any text inside. Now let's hit send. As you can see, we have an error, db collection is not a function. So let's jump back inside our model because we wrote something not correctly. And here we have db not collection but db.get, and after this collection. Let's check once again. I'm hitting send, and we're getting here response, acknowledged true, inserted ID, and this is our ID. And actually this is not what I would expect to get back, because actually for me as a user it doesn't make a lot of sense to get such response. I want to get the whole comment. Inside Mongodb it is not possible. We're getting back just this information. This is why directly here I want to get our full comment. And for this we can simply write return db.get and again .collection. Here we have our collection comments, and after this we're using find1 to find this single comment. And inside we can provide _id result.inserted id. And actually inside this result, as you saw here inside Postman, we have inserted ID, and this is exactly our created record. What I want to do, I want to return this data back so we can get them as a comment from the database. So we will get the whole comment and not just ID. Let's check again. I'm hitting here send, and we're getting our comment. And actually it is looking beautiful. We have here parent ID now, our body that we created, ID, user ID and created add. The only problem is this _ID. It is fine to work with it, but actually all our frontends want just to get ID without underscore. This is why what I want to do inside our controllers, I want to normalize our comment. This is why here we can create an additional function normalize comment, and here we are getting our whole document. So here we will create a comment and just destructure and spread our document. After this I want to write comment.id inside, and it is our document ._id, and after this I want to remove from our comment _id property and just return our comment that now is clean. Now we can use this normalize comment function inside create. So here we are getting our document, and now we can create a property response where we will just call normalize comment and throw inside a document. Now here send response, and we will get a correct response back. Let's check this out. I'm hitting here send, and now we're getting exactly the same response, but here ID is without underscore. And we can do exactly the same to get all comments. This is why here after docs we can build our response, and it will be docs.map. We're getting every single document, and we're calling here normalize comment with this document. And after getting a response, we want simply to give it back. Let's check this out. Here inside Postman, we have a get request on /comments. I'm hitting here send, and we're getting all our comments that we created here. The next method that we will implement is updating of our comment. And for this I want to jump back inside our model and create here a new function. And actually it will be super similar to create. This is why I will copy paste our create and just rename it to update. And here we are getting two arguments. First of all, this is our ID, and secondly, new data, which actually means typically we will provide just text to update our comment. And here we have exactly the same. We have result for db get collection comments, but here is not insert one. Instead we can write here .update one, and we want to provide inside _id that we want to update. But we can't just simply write here ID, we need to wrap it in object ID, and it is a Mongodb ID. As a second argument here we're providing an object with field $set, and we're setting here our new data. And this is exactly how you will update a record inside MongoDB. And actually after update we won't get our updated comment back. This is why here it doesn't make even any sense to get a result. What we want to write instead of result.insertedID is simply object ID and provide inside an ID. So we essentially are just looking for the comment that we provided here as an ID. Now let's create our controller action. This is why here inside our controller I will copy paste our create fully because it will be super similar. So here we want to name this function update, and inside we won't generate a comment. We can simply use here await comments .update, and inside we first of all provide our request.params.id. This is an ID from the URL, and secondly we are providing an object with field body, and here we are just writing request.body.text, which actually means we simply want to update just text. We can't update any other fields. This is exactly the behavior that we want. The main idea is that here we can provide any object that we want to update inside our comment. So here we are getting back a document, and here we're normalizing the response, which means our code is essentially the same. Now we just need to jump back inside our index.js and create here a new route. And it will be app put to /comments/ and here will be :id, because here will be the ID of our comment. And here we have comments controller.update. Now let's check our function. For this we must copy the ID and make a request on /comments/ this specific ID, and it will be a put request. And here inside we can provide a text and for example write updated comment. Let's hit here send, and as you can see it is not working. We are getting object ID is not defined. So we have an error inside our model. So inside source models comments, on the top we must import this object ID, and we can destructure object ID and get it from MongoDB. In this case it will work correctly. Let's hit here send again, and as you can see we are getting our updated comment. So this is the ID, it is normalized correctly, and now our body is updated comment. And the last method that we want to create is deleting of the comment. So first of all we are starting from our model, and here it will be really simple. Here is exports delete, and we just provide an ID, and inside we want to return db.get. Here we have our collection, comments, .delete1, and inside we're providing an object with underscore ID. Here we have object ID. So we're using it exactly in the same way like here on the top. Now let's jump inside our controller and create this function. For this I will copy-paste update function completely, and here what we want to do inside try, we want just to wait for comments.delete, and we are passing inside request.params.id, and we don't get anything back because this is a delete. We also don't need to normalize our response, and we can simply write here res send status to 100, which means we successfully deleted our record. And the last step is to register this route inside our index.js. So here I will copy-paste this put line and change it to app delete, and here we have /comment/id, and here is our .delete request. As you can see inside console we are getting an error, route delete requires a callback, but got object undefined. And the problem is here that inside our controller I forgot to change the name. It is exports delete. Now we are not getting an error, so let's check if it's working. We have here already an ID, and we can simply use here delete and hit send. As you can see we are getting back OK, and we won't find this updated comment anymore. This is why if we will check the list of our comments, we won't find here a comment with the name updated comment. And actually, if you're interested to know how we implement the frontend for exactly this project inside React, make sure to check this video also.